So, another question a lot of wrestling fans have, especially with a lot of the releases that have happened this year so far, basically according to some people about 70 releases, and if you believe anything, like I said in the last video, that potentially Meltzer and says about what's coming later this month or later on this year. Again, we haven't had no confirmation from other people to back that up or debunk it. There's always been one question ever since a lot of this has been happening, and that is WWE getting ready to be, sold? In other words, is it going up for sale? And this is a question that, has been asked mainly because when you look at a lot of these releases, this massive amount of releases in the past year, a lot of people are skeptical of whether or not WWE is either, getting ready to put itself up for, bid to the highest bidder, or this maybe they're trying to clean up, and reorganize themselves to start out 2022 on a fresh note. We don't know. But, that is the question that a lot of folks have is WWE up for sale? Are they getting ready to sell themselves to the highest bidder? Or, like I just said, are they just trying to reorganize themselves for next year to start off on a fresh note? And to me, I don't know what to believe, honestly, because here's the thing. We're in a time right now. We are in a time right now that, a couple of years ago, several years ago, about, I would say, 2019 or 2018, when we saw All In, everybody was excited because that was the first major, multi-purpose, multi-independent, I should say, not multi-purpose, but multi-independent promoted, cross-branded pay-per-view in a long time, since the days of, the AEW Super Clash 3, which had AEWA, WCCW, and CWA. That was the last time anybody had that kind of a pay-per-view to present, where you had all these different organizations actively, working together to showcase their talents on a bigger platform, or at least talents that were under contract to them, but also talents that were, independent to perform wherever they wanted, depending on how much, they were being booked for on that show. And, none of us realized at that time that All In was pretty much the genesis for AEW. Along with Jericho and Omega, yes, but, above all, All In was the genesis. They were the foundation. And, none of us thought that, okay, that another promotion was going to come out of that. That another major league wrestling promotion on a national scale, backed by another billionaire, was going to come out of that, but yet here we are. So I would not put anything past a potential WWE, going up for sale deal. I would not. I mean, let's be honest. None of us saw the pandemic coming, and yet that changed a lot. It's still kind of being felt today because, there's a lot of people that's still very reluctant to, put masks on. There's still a lot of people that are reluctant to, get the vaccine. There's still a lot of people that, just want to, have this, they just want to hear a certain number to where they could say, see, we don't need all that. We're fine now. So, none of us saw any of this coming. But yet here we are, and it's definitely had an effect on the wrestling business in general. I mean, you look at the fact that Sinclair is having Ring of Honor go on hiatus, hopefully up until April of next year, and so they can make their return in time for WrestleMania weekend in Dallas. You see the effect it had there, and nobody would have thought that Ring of Honor would be, in this kind of position. I mean, yeah, Ring of Honor has had some financial situations, and, people have had thoughts of, oh, is it going to be the first to go? Like hang it up, close the doors for good. Yeah, people have had those thoughts, but not, not publicly known or anything. They just probably thought about it, and I'm sure a lot of the men and women that worked in ROH thought the same thing. But yet, here we are at a point to where they're still in business, but they're taking time off after Final Battle in December next month to kind of reorganize themselves and try to, basically, soft reboot, I guess you could say, or reboot the organization to be something that's more, not just fan-friendly, but more unique in its presentation, which is either a good or bad thing depending on your point of view. So, hearing, the rumors, more so than ever before of WWE potentially going up for sale, as the old saying goes, where there's smoke, there's fire. And we've seen several smoke signals showing up throughout this year, sometimes, not so strong and sometimes very strong, of the potential of WWE going, up to the highest bidder. And when you hear reports that WWE is letting go a massive amount of talent, not because, they either didn't want to get vaccinated or, they just didn't have nothing planned for them, or it's budget cuts, whether or not, if you believe that or not, coming from WWE itself, you look at, this massive amount of talent that's let go, more so than any, cuts that they've made in years, and it really starts to make you curious of what's really going on. And then when you hear them bragging about, at the same time, how much they made in a quarter, and you're thinking, well, if you're making that much, you should be able to keep this talent, but you're cutting them anyway. It's still curious. It's still a very curious situation as to what's really going on. And a lot of people with, backgrounds in business, especially when it comes to being part of, some kind of business, transaction to where one thing's up for sale, and the only reason they're going up for sale is because a lot of the similar things that people see going on with WWE occurred because they wanted to make themselves look good and everything before that potential sale. All the signs are there. All the signs are there. So you have to wonder whether or not there is, truth to it. Because the more we start seeing more of that smoke showing up, in Stamford, Connecticut, figuratively from WWE headquarters, anytime something like this happens, and that smoke gets thicker and stronger and higher every time, then you realize where there's smoke, there has to be fire. There has to basically be some truth to the matter. And like I said, we're in a day and age now where I would not be surprised if the next major thing we hear about WWE is it's going to go up for sale. But the question is, if it goes up for sale, who would be the ones to buy it? And most likely the ones that would buy it are Comcast, Universal, NBC, Peacock. They would be the ones to buy it. I mean, a lot of people look at the fact that, except on an international basis, everybody looks at the fact that from a U.S. North American standpoint, WWE sold the WWE networks rights for the next 4 years to Peacock to be part of the Peacock streaming service. And a lot of people looked at that as like being the first, red flag potentially of something, going on that we're not being alerted to. And again, when you take that into consideration, along with the fact that you have all these massive releases, more so than any in years, of talent, not just, in-ring talent, but even corporate talent, working in Stamford in the offices there, it really brings up a lot more red flags. It brings up a lot more smoke that gets thicker and higher than before, figuratively, to where now you're starting to think, is there a real fire going on? And if so, when are they gonna, basically set it ablaze and say, yes, what you're hearing about us putting the company up for sale is true, and here's potentially the new owners and all that, or are they going to extinguish that fire by stopping what they're doing and just, let things be? You have to wonder. You have to really wonder what's really going on. And then on top of that, you see the decrease in pay-per-views. Usually they like to do 12 pay-per-views a year along with their international Saudi shows or, blood money shows, whatever they want to call them, or whatever people want to call them, that are once or twice or 3 times a year. You see them cutting back on the, traditional 12-month deals and taking a month break or so. It really makes you curious as to what's happening. Because, again, just like earlier this year, they released talents, but yet they report high earnings. Like they made some great financial, leeway in that quarter. But you have to wonder, again, if they're making all this money, why not keep the talents if you can afford to do so instead of cutting them? And a lot of that starts to make you wonder. It starts making you wonder, is there truth to the matter of WWE going up for sale soon? And again, who would be the ones to buy it? Now, I know a lot of diehard wrestling fans would love for Tony Khan to come in. I say this with all due respect, no offense. They would love for Tony Khan to come in, buy the company, and say, WWE, now part of All Elite Wrestling, the WWE is now a developmental company. They would love that. Or they would like to, they would love the fact that Tony Khan owns 2 different companies and that he'll finally be able to give us what we want, legitimately. I mean, I know people would love that. And, that might be true. If there is truth, to the matter, if that fire gets, going and gets set ablaze, yeah, there's going to, be no doubt that Tony Khan might be the first or one of the first to throw his hat into the ring to buy the company. At least try to buy ownership of it so he can have 2 separate wrestling promotions and he can finally, being a fan himself, give fans what they want. But the one name, like I said earlier, that's being the leading candidate in the potential buyership of WWE, if there's any truth to it going up for sale, is Peacock. Peacock, Comcast, Xfinity, Universal, they are the ones that are the front runners, first and foremost, to the potential sale. Now, is Fox a potential buyer too? Oh, absolutely. If Fox has SmackDown, you can't tell me they're not going to throw their hat in the ring as well. So when I look at potentially, future owners, buyers of WWE, if there's any truth to it being up for sale, I look at Comcast, Xfinity, being the first ones. I see Fox being second, and I will say it. I think Tony Khan would be the third person in line to potentially throw their hat in the ring to try to buy and outbid the other for ownership of the company. But the question would be, what happens if each get the company? Well, I think Peacock, Peacock, Comcast, Xfinity, Universal, if they get ownership of WWE, they might keep things the same, or they might say, look, Vince McMahon's vision wasn't working for us, so we're going to change it to where what we see going on with, let's say, SmackDown on Fox, or maybe they'll even look at what's going on with AEW and say, that's what we want to do, or that's what's making them successful, that's what's attracting fans. Guess what? We're going to apply that now, since we're the owners. We're going to take what, let's say, AEW's doing, or what they're doing with SmackDown on Fox, and we're going to apply it to Monday Night Raw, or we're going to apply it overall to the company. I wouldn't put it past them. I wouldn't put it past them to do that. And if it's not them, and let's say Fox comes in and becomes the ones that buys the company, Fox will basically say, well, you see what we're doing with SmackDown? Guess what? We're going to do the same for the entire WWE, to where, yeah, we'll probably showcase a few things that not a lot of people are going to agree with, but we're going to make more of a focus and more of an effort on giving them a good product. And they might even say, they might even consider looking at AEW and saying, well, AEW is doing something that's working, so let's try that too. That might happen. And last but not least, if Tony Khan surprises everybody and he's the one that swoops in and buys the company, then Tony Khan will just take what he's doing with AEW, place it over on WWE and say, you see what we're doing? Now you do it. And that would be it. That would be it. And Tony Khan would be the kind of guy that would be like, you know what? This entertainment thing, it doesn't work for me. And he can find a way. He's got a lot of money. He can find a way. He says, this entertainment thing's not working for me, so we're going to rename it back to what it was, Federation. Because it seems that when they were the Federation, they were still sports entertainment, but they had more focus on wrestling. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe, he either keeps it as WWE, but changes it from entertainment to extreme, or he goes from, WWE, or goes back to WWF, and basically finds a way to work out something with the World Wildlife Foundation and say, look, they have they have the same initials, but it's called Federation, and we'll always say World Wrestling Federation. We'll always say World Wrestling Federation instead of just WWF. He could do that too. He has the money, but that's if he buys it. And again, I could see him applying what they're doing with AEW to WWE. I could see that. And I could see him keeping someone like Paul Levesque, Triple H, and saying, now you're going to run WWE. It's like, I'm going to own it. Me and my father are going to own it, just like we own AEW. But you're going to be the figurehead. You're going to be the new CEO of my company. And you're going to run it the way you and I know it should be run. I would be surprised. But again, this is all dependent on whether or not there is truth to the matter of WWE going up for sale. Because again, where there's smoke, there's fire. And where there's tons of smoke, coming from the same place throughout the years, obviously there's a fire getting ready to be set ablaze. And that's figuratively, not literally. But what do you guys think? Excuse me there. But what do you guys think? Do you think there's any truth to the matter that WWE could be going up for sale? Or do you think maybe WWE's just trying to reorganize themselves so they could start out fresh in 2022? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments of this whole situation in the comment section below, as well as in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video. Check out my podcast, the BW Roses Discussions, on all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora. Also check me out at Patreon.com/BW Roses for, a donation if you want to help financially there with a $1 or $3 tier. Also check me out at BW Roses on VENMO for videos there you can't get here on YouTube, as well as check me out at my Venmo if you want to help donate there as well. But what do you guys think? Do you think there's any truth in the matter? Comment below, live chat during the premiere, and I will talk to you later.